you visit any police station today, they prioritize the issue of that business more than the other entity.
That's similar to something else. Fantastic. Yeah.
So what that means is it drives in a way social impact. What can the business do for the environment? What can the business provide, to the community to help alleviate poverty, to, do a whole lot of things. And unconsciously, it's drive visibility to the brand, because more people, as they get aware of that, they get an idea to the product and services of what those business concerns offer them.
Wonderful. Excellent. That's phenomenal. I think this is very, very rich. Looking at it from the angle of social impact, CSI, people think it's a social, corporate social irresponsibility, wherefore it is much more than that, right? And then you also mentioned something around green rinsing and all that. And those are really very fantastic things. Let's move a bit ahead and get into the boardroom right now. In the boardroom, oftentimes decisions are being reached, right? Scenarios will happen, situations will happen, and company needs to make decisions, right? It is honed on the board to take decisions, right, that shape organizations. Now, many people think that companies that rely on data tend to make more appropriate decisions than companies that rely on scenarios or other mechanisms, right? And I will just quickly say, for example, a scenario or something there's something we call active inertia, right? By Professor Saul, that says that when a situation happens, the company falls back to what they have done in the past because it works then they want to do it again, unknowing to them that the environmental factors have changed, right? Which is active inertia. Now, so today, Ezekiel, my question is to you. What do you think about the question of data? Do you think companies that make decisions with data tend to make better decisions? Secondly, at what point do you think there's a limitation to data? I'm talking from the angle of AI and technology.
All right, so thank you for that question. My response will definitely be yes and no. Yes and no may sound diplomatic, but I'll be able to justify it.
Okay.
So when it comes to boardroom decisions, I think it is very, very necessary to hang them on data. They have to be data driven. Because of the fact that you can't just use your judgment or your wisdom in a way that is not rely on data. However, we need to ensure that whatever data that is provided is evidence-based. How have we revalidated or confirmed, the availability of the provision of that data? Because remember that whatever outcome or consequences that come out of that decision has come, and it will definitely affect the business. So what I would say in terms of yes is that it is better than, intuition. It is better than emotions. It's better than personal judgment, arising from the fact that the whole concept of the boardroom decision is to satisfy interest. I know that you want to talk about that in your next episode, but interest is very, very key.
Yeah.
So we have 34 people on the board, and somebody is bringing, an idea. This has to happen. This is an initiative that is not data backed. Before you know, if that person is influential enough, everybody may be swayed, to follow him or her because there is no data. Now, but where it is data driven, we could see from the inside, we could see from the analysis, given historical fact, given the projection into the future, it is something we can go with. That makes it a bit better. That makes it a bit better than, sounding it on emotions. However, we must ensure that there is an application of wisdom, there's an application of judgment, right judgment, in choosing whatever decisions that will come from data availability. I want to make an example. Where you have a vendor, for example, who is very, very huge, the contribution to satisfying clients is very optimal. But you find out that in the last 6 months to 1 year, the delivery has been very slow. The timing, often than not, has been coming at a very odd period. But it's the best in terms of quality provision, where the client or most of the clients will not be able to reject the quality, the positioning. So if you are basing it on the fact that in the last 12 months, the data has shown that this man has been delivering at an all time, and you take a lot of convictions for you to win your client because deliveries to them happens late. And on the basis of that data, you discard them. So it is not enough. One thing we could do by using wisdom or judgment is, can we call him or her? Can we ask, what are the reasons? Probably the man is suffering from a whole lot of hormone issues, a whole lot of, personal matters that have affected his business. But when you understand it from a number of perspectives, when you put it in a proper context, you find out that the reason for that delay in supply was not natural. It wasn't, natural for him. It is just occasioned by certain elements. And by the time those elements are taken care of, you find out that he will deliver on the
delivery will be on spot.
Quality will be very, very okay. So at the end of the day, how I will answer that is there should be a hybrid. Yeah, data-driven decision making is very, very good, but it should be complemented with judgment, fundamental confirmation of the data set so that we can arrive at a balance.
Fantastic. That's very accurate. Ezekiel believes that it's hybrid. It has to be, data driven, but at the same time, there should be some sort of checks and balances. Talking about checks and balances, I could also remember that Tim Topper said something about audit trails, right? When he was speaking at that time. Sometimes when you are presenting data to the board or to the, shareholders, okay, so let me use an example of what happened with Enron. I don't know if you know Enron, the Enron scam and the Parmalat, right? Where they were audited by, I can't remember, maybe Deloitte or something like that. But at the same time, in the Big Fours, right? And it led to a big, huge scandal. Can we really say at that point data failed, or what's your own perspective on that? Is it, what do you think? Like, even though auditors, we're talking about auditors now, they audited the books, they did everything, but still there's something we call SPEs, right? Special purpose entities, right?
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that there's transparency from the board to the shareholders and that it can protect the interest of the shareholders? I don't know. Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
So this is the way I will answer that. When you talk about audited financial statement, it is a bit, vague to say that this business has been audited, yet fraud or errors, were not captured, were not identified on time. I may not be able to, give that proper explanation, but the fact remains that for you to arrive at an opinion that is very clean, from the point of the external auditors, all material facts, findings, will have been tabled, in line with the necessary guidelines. You have international audit standards,
and you have FRS,
guidelines, and so on and so forth. So they will have tabled all of those matters, all of those facts, the data on ground will have spoken to, what is on ground. And I trust that the external auditors will have advised, where possible, that so findings happen. And these are recommendations. These are likely consequences if these recommendations are not taken care of. So coming to your question by saying, yes, with the data, is it still possible for us to be exposed to it? Yes, it's possible. The reason is that the data itself has to be validated. For example, I just told you a vendor who has provided the best of quality in terms of supplies, but because of the fact that the timing of delivery has been very wrong, and that matter or that reason, the circumstances leading to that was not a direct fault of his. So if we are relying on that data to say, let's dismiss him, let's replace him with another person, that is to tell you that even the data giving us that decision is faulty. So how do we establish that it is faulty? So we need to find out from the guy. This is our assessment. This is what we have seen over time. Could you tell us what has happened? There's always a point of engagement. There's a point of reassessment. So from that, you'll be able to revalidate the data set and take your decision. So that is how I want to respond. I don't.
Thank you. Maybe we should allow Tommy to.
Yes.
Tommy has been a bit quiet.
Yes, I wanted to say that it's the governance. You always need to look at the governance in place, right? And Ezekiel also mentioned revalidating. You can change data, right? Data can be tampered with and all of that. But what is the governance structure that you have in place that would be able to go back to the trail and then identify all of this? That's why I'm always an advocate of, technology, right? Keep revalidating. Yes, the human judgment is there, but there's that aspect of technology as well that helps your governance framework that cannot be tampered with. And if tampered with, it can always be recovered. So let's have that balance to say, you know what, there's a governance structure that has to be in place. There is that human part of it, but there is a technology part of it that, yes, can be tampered with, but if tampered with, we can always get to the bottom of it.
Thank you very much. That is phenomenal from Ezekiel. I love his, I'm an advocate of some of the things he said. And I'm also, I really like what, Tommy said about governance. And I think also governance is very necessary because, of course, you have to form committees. Even on the board, you have to form committee on particular situation or maybe what do you call it now? Committee on this particular issue, committee on that issue. And they can give, consistent reports to the board, which is more reliable. Thank you for that. So now, my next question is that, in the boardroom, right? When decisions are being reached, the finance person, okay, so talking about both of you now, the finance person is looking at data and the human capital person is looking at, company culture. And somewhat, it may feel as though, you are speaking different languages, right? So, Tommy, this is my question to you. How can we speak the same language in such a way that we are trying to, come up with a simple solution that can undo or, come up with decisions that can help the company in such a way that me as a human capital person and the financial person are saying the same thing?
Okay, thank you, Joe. So, it's starting with the understanding that, we are all in for the same objective, right? The finance person will measure outcomes. HR is expected to build that system that would enable those outcomes, right? So how do we work together to achieve this? Finance is going to be looking at your risk. It's going to be looking at your revenue, your cost. What's the return on investment? HR ordinarily will be looking at capabilities, trust, and all of that. I had an issue recently where, we engaged two vendors to provide different services, actually the same services, and we needed to make employees trust the process. But when it got to the table, right, we did not get the backing of the finance team. At the end of the day, the trust was lost, right? Yeah. So HR is looking at trust, but finance is looking at other
money.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, if you look at it, they're both measuring performance, but at different times, right? There is one that is looking at lagging outcomes. There's one that is looking at the leading outcomes. So how then do we align? For me, it's simple. There needs to be that stream. There needs to be that framework to say, let's start from the beginning. What is the goal? What is the business goal?
Objective.
Exactly. So we want to increase revenue. Fantastic. HR and finance, let's come together. For us to increase revenue, increase growth, what do we need? HR will ask, what are the behaviors? Do we have those behaviors? Do we need to change our current behaviors, right? What do we need to do to get to that point? HR will ask again, do you have the capability, right, to achieve this, right? Do we need to buy? Do we need to build? And then finance would then say, finance, right? This is all we need to do. How will you be able to come back to us to confirm that it is successful? There is that agreement.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we'll get a dashboard together to say this is what both parties are seeing. So once finance is looking at growth, HR is looking at revenue per employee.
Yeah.
And then there is an alignment.
There's an alignment, yeah.
Exactly. When finance is looking at stability, HR is looking at, okay, how do I reduce my retention costs, my hiring costs, my onboarding costs? To achieve this, can we get this budget for retention strategies? So you see that as an alignment because we're looking at the same dashboard.
Objective,
And at the end of the day, finance and HR we're aligned because we want the same thing at the end of the day. It's just that the way we need to achieve it is different.